Hello and welcome to the Imaging Wire Show. My name is Brian Casey, Managing Editor of the Imaging Wire. We've got a great episode for you today. Our topic is the intersection of AI and precision medicine. And our guest is Chiranjiv Singh, General Manager at Arterys, a Tempus Labs company. Chiranjiv, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me here. I've been a follower of your work since I started and a reader of Imaging Wire since they started. So it's a pleasure to be sharing this.
Awesome. Well, great. Glad to hear that. Chiranjiv, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. So, as you said, I'm currently as the Vice President and GM of what we now in Tempus call Pixel, which is a new name for Arterys. Prior to this, I spent a few years at two other AI startups, prior to which I spent more than a decade at GE Healthcare. So, been in the imaging and healthcare field for more than 2 decades now.
So you've seen quite a bit.
Yes.
Excellent. So let's start a little bit by talking about Arterys and the clinical challenge that the company is addressing with this technology, and then we'll talk a little bit about the Tempus Labs affiliation after that. So when was Arterys formed, and what was the clinical challenge that you're attacking?
So I think some of our listeners may be aware, Arterys was one of the pioneers in the radiology field. Was started in the latter half of 2011, so more than a decade, by four, I would say, very enterprising leaders, all of whom had a linkage with Stanford University. That's where they met. That's where the company was based at. The clinical challenge that the company focused on from day one is how do we use AI to reduce subjectivity and variability in diagnosis. As we know, there is a lot of gut feel, a lot of individual interpretation. And the first product that Arterys built was to solve that in 4D flow measurements in cardiac MR. We were in many ways ahead of the curve. Arterys was the recipient of the first US FDA for a cloud-hosted deep learning algorithm in a clinical setting. And over the 10 years that it's been in existence, I would say it has a great ride that's seen our team impact more than 1 million lives with more than 100 sites across the globe.
Now, is the company's focus been on cardiac MRI, or have you kind of expanded out from there?
So it started with cardiac MRI. That was the first product. But along the way, it expanded and we built products around oncology, around breast imaging. And towards the last or latter part of its existence as an independent company, Arterys also realized the value in being a single platform, wherein we started partnering with other third-party AI algorithms to integrate and offer it to healthcare systems.
Okay, sounds great. Now, toward the end of last year, Arterys became part of the Tempus Labs family, and Tempus Labs is actually a pretty big company, but a lot of people in radiology might not be familiar with them. Can you tell us a little bit about Tempus and the association with Arterys?
Sure, thanks. And you're right, a lot of people in the imaging or radiology world may not be familiar. Tempus is a very fascinating company, started in 2015, so not too long ago, by Eric Lefkowski, who's a serial tech entrepreneur, but the company has grown very rapidly. It's perhaps best known for its NGS or next generation sequencing lab, where we sequence DNA, RNA out of tissue samples. But as it has grown, I think I look at Tempus doing three things. I look at Tempus helping physicians make more informed decisions about precision medicine. On the second end, we have a lot of work where we assist pharma and biotech improve their drug development. But the biggest goal or the eventual goal is to help patients find the best targeted therapy for their condition.
And so with NGS, with next generation sequencing, you're looking at really basic level components of the patient, correct? I mean, things like genetics and things like that, correct?
Yes, we do that. What Tempus has done differently in many ways is it doesn't restrict itself to just one sequence. It runs the full transcriptome of DNA and RNA. And Tempus has also built a significant practice around acquiring and then structuring clinical data. Because all these data points, be it radiology, be it sequencing, the reality, as you know, Brian, and a lot of our viewers will agree, is data in our healthcare system sits in silos. And what Tempus has been trying to do is how do we provide clinical context to all of that? And that's, in a very simple way, the definition of precision medicine.
Right. Now, what was it that attracted Tempus to Arterys? It sounds like they've been really big in kind of life sciences, drug development, whereas Arterys is much more kind of hands-on clinical. Why did they think that an acquisition of Arterys would be interesting to them?
So I think if I look at the vision of Tempus, it's even on our website, it's defined as AI-enabled precision medicine. And in order to make that precision medicine vision true, you need a full 360 view of the patient. Radiology is an integral part of it. And as you said, the experience that Arterys had, our ability to deploy AI on the field, our team knew clinical workflows extremely well. We had gone through multiple regulatory frameworks. We had 8 US FDA clearances for our own solutions and others around the world. I think all of those capabilities and that experience added a lot to the vision of delivering AI-enabled precision medicine.
Now, the acquisition was completed back in I think it was October of 2022. How have things progressed since then? How has the integration of the companies gone?
No, it's been quite amazing. I think it's been a very easy integration because both the companies were aligned over a common vision. We've created a new business unit called Pixel, which is what I lead now, where what we've done is we've not only taken the assets and the capabilities that the Arterys team brought on the radiology side, we've combined that with internal teams working at Tempus on pathology AI. The goal is to look at both these imaging modalities and build AI on top of both these data sets as we go ahead. So we've already integrated our engineering teams. We are now relying on a much larger AI team that existed within Tempus. And I think a lot of other functional resources, be it medical affairs, be it legal, all those support functions that get constrained in a smaller startup. I think we as Arterys now have access to a lot richer pool of resources, which we are leveraging from the Tempus side.
Now, it's interesting that you bring up pathology AI because it sounds like pathology right now is starting into that digitization curve that radiology went through, 25 or 30 years ago. And the interesting thing about it is that AI, whereas with radiology, AI was just sort of a gleam in someone's eye back then, pathology is kind of getting AI right as they start to digitize. Do you guys think you have an advantage because you've got both pathology and radiology under the same roof as opposed to maybe other companies out in healthcare that maybe have to combine solutions from two different firms?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think we would be one of the few companies which today has access to true multimodal data. We run our own labs. We do sequencing. We do pathology. We now have radiology. We have clinical history. So short answer is yes. I think it's a very different approach. And I think the path we are taking in pathology, to the point you made about pathology inherently not being digital, we're actually supporting healthcare systems go to that digitization path. We're offering digitization as a service. So everything from the scanner to the AI or everything else in between, we can become the one-stop shop to help our clients and our physicians go through that.
Yeah. How powerful do you think that's going to be, the integration of pathology and radiology, and how will that change clinical workflow? I mean, are we going to see workstations where a clinician might have radiology images and pathology slides like side by side and be able to use both of those?
I don't know if we'll get there because the clinician reviewing those are still different. The pathologist and the radiologist still have their own information management systems. But what I definitely see happening and what I see as an ask coming is when, say, an oncologist or a neurosurgeon or neurologist or whoever is deciding a treatment pathway for their patient, they want to look at both these inputs together. They want to look at not just what their imaging studies tell them about the patient, they also want to look at the gene profile. They also want to look at pathology results, clinical history. So we have ways in which we are serving all of this information through a common Tempus platform. And that's our way of making precision medicine real.
Is this common platform something that the end user would see, or is that more so kind of a back end thing that Tempus looks at?
It's both. There is a back end thing, which is kind of the engineering layer that makes this happen. But there is also a front end facing dashboard or clinical interface that the clinician will see. And what we are doing is today, the clinician doesn't just get, say, a PDF report of one result. They are able to query, they are able to talk. In fact, the latest thing Tempus is launching is actually a voice-enabled interface where the physician can ask questions about their patient. And those questions may be related to any of these modalities. And the Tempus engine at the back end will serve those questions, answers to those questions to them.
Wow, that sounds really impressive.
It's super exciting. I think the vision of integrating all these AI tools, and I think the way Tempus looks at it is AI is not the end in itself.
Yeah.
It's just the means to deliver that precision medicine outcome and eventually help them guide the best treatment for each patient.
Yeah.
The way of serving it, the way of combining it, the way of even building AI, we're thinking about it in a very different lens.
Cool. Now, we talked a lot about how Tempus technology is moving into radiology. Are some of the Arterys solutions also migrating over into what Tempus is doing in, you mentioned next generation sequencing, precision medicine and stuff like that. Is there a movement that way as well?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll give you an example. So Tempus has a very active team, focuses on clinical trials. And there are two parts of that. What the team does, it obviously works with biopharma or CROs in helping them, design and structure trials. But it also in parallel helps physicians identify the right trials for their patients. Because as I said, we have clinical history. When we get a sequencing sample, we may know, hey, Chiranjiv is the right candidate for a particular trial. Can we connect you to that? Now, what we realized in all these trials, an integral part of monitoring the trial is continuous patient follow-up, therapy response evaluation. And we have now started presenting and evaluating how the legacy Arterys AI capabilities, which were so far only looked at, we are measuring the size of a nodule and putting that into a radiology report. How can that be compliantly put into a clinical trial setting, into a therapy response evaluation setting?
And so
we started leveraging what Arterys had built and seeing how can we fit that into the work that Tempus is already doing.
And so the application would be, let's say a pharmaceutical company is testing a drug for lung cancer. And in the past, you'd have to follow these people for a really long period of time to find out if the drug was working. But now you can scan them and use AI and other tools like what Arterys has to see the impact of the drug, almost in real time.
No, absolutely. You can reduce variability in that tracking. I mean, there are multi-center trials, different radiologists reading the images. You can also use AI to identify the right patients for each trial because you know their biomarkers, you're doing their sequencing, you're doing their pathology. So there are many ways in which you can use AI to help that trial process. And it's not just the pharma companies, as I mentioned. We're finding a lot of interest from clinicians who want to use these tools so that it brings in more accuracy and precision into their work.
Could you conceivably use AI to identify patients like from the clinical record and just say, kind of cherry pick like, hey, this person is really appropriate for this clinical trial that we have going on? Is that something that could be a possible use case?
I would say yes. With the slight modification, it may not be just the clinical record. It may be a combination of clinical record and some sort of imaging or testing.
Hmm.
Yes, the clinical record often gives an invaluable input into that decision.
Yes.
You may know that in the past I had an adverse reaction to a particular drug.
Yeah.
Or, this therapy or this trial is not suitable. And you
Right.
can get that without realizing it after you put in that patient because you had access to that clinical record.
Wow, this is all really exciting. And so these are all kind of technologies and uses that all feed into this idea of precision medicine. What are some other exciting future areas that you see this technology evolving into?
Right. So I think there are a lot of exciting things, as I said, we're talking about getting a full 360 view of the patient. As we are growing and as we are combining our resources, we are now building what already is not in some ways, in reality. So Tempus already has the world's largest library of clinical and molecular data. The fact that we've added radiology and imaging to it, we now have the ability to start thinking about AI across different modality sets or multimodality. And we're truly getting into what a lot of companies have spoken about in terms of radiomics, in terms of building AI with not just one data set, but different data sets. And that's a very exciting field for our AI engineers. Something they were unable to do in the past because they were limited to just one modality data. Even if a company looks at radiology and pathology, very few of them have clinical history. But if you combine all of that together into like one pot, the ability to build multimodal AI models, which are predictive, which are, helping clinicians get the right treatment and not just on this kind of data, I think we have now the ability to follow it right till, real world clinical outcomes.
That's really exciting. So I guess that feeds into my next question. How do you see Arterys technology and what you're doing there in the Pixel division being part of the Tempus Labs vision for the future going forward?
So, as I said, the Tempus vision is, AI-enabled precision medicine. And I think what Arterys is bringing in is completing that vision. There's a statement that I make often, and Tempus has a lot of strengths in oncology. It operates in oncology, neurocardiology, but oncology has been, I would say, a core of that business. And a term I use internally very often, that no patient gets into oncology without first going through radiology. Now, that's where the disease gets diagnosed, and not just diagnosis, and it may be radiology, it may be pathology. It's also a frequent pit stop when you're monitoring progress. So if we really have to enable that oncologist or that surgeon or whoever is that physician to take right decisions at the right time, we need to integrate all these modalities into the information they are seeing, break down that silos. And that's where the potential of Pixel is today.
Cool. Now, what sort of things are you hearing from customers and potential customers out in the field, clinicians, radiologists? What are like some of their pain points, and how do you feel that AI and precision medicine can help them?
Sure. So, I think after the integration within Tempus, we've widened who we are speaking to. We are not just speaking to radiologists or pathologists. We are also speaking to physicians who take care of patients. And, every physician we speak to wants help in their decision-making for their patient. I think the most common questions we get asked is, how soon can you integrate all of this within my Epic workflow? And the reality is we can. We have a lot of ways, and, even before Arterys, Tempus has been integrating with Epic in a very strong manner. Or how soon can we expand this beyond some of the initial use cases that we presented to them? So I think the opportunity for us is not just in terms of data silos, but truly also break, in some ways, departmental silos and get a fully integrated team serving that patient. And there is a lot of excitement every time we speak to clinicians on how quickly can we deliver, because they've seen a lot of companies come and, I would say, talk about radiomics or precision medicine, but very few who've been able to successfully integrate all these parts and deliver the outcome.
It really seems like the biggest challenge for all of us is workflow. And how do we integrate all these amazing tools that are being developed into radiologist workflow without disrupting them? And so that's going to be the real challenge going forward. As we draw to a close, what do you think are some of the trends in AI and imaging IT that are going to shape radiology in the years to come?
When I look at AI in radiology, I think, as Arterys, we've been at it for 10 years. So I would say around, that's kind of the lifespan of the industry. And I think we've still scratched the surface. We've started with very initial attempts at diagnosing stuff, at triaging stuff. We are yet to get into radiomics. We are yet to get into, predicting changes based on imaging, quantification. And I think the future will not just automate a lot of these tasks for the radiologists, make it easy for their workflow. But I think the key will also be how do we integrate all these AI outputs to reach the end clinician on time. I can identify a nodule, I can triage a hemorrhage, but if that still sits on the work list of a radiologist, it's not helped the patient. And I think that's what I want to see happening, and I'm very confident will happen soon.
Very good. Well, I'm sure that it will happen. Well, I'd like to thank Chiranjiv Singh of Arterys and Tempus Labs for being with us. Signing off for the Imaging Wire, my name is Brian Casey.
Thank you, Brian.